She had been at her clinic since 7 that morning. 12 patients, 2 staff meetings, 1 difficult conversation with an insurance company that had denied coverage for a patient she had been treating for 18 months. She had won the appeal. She always won the appeals. She drove home thinking about the conversation she needed to have with her office manager about expanding the Thursday appointment slots. She pulled into the garage. She went inside. She started dinner. Herb roasted chicken, his favorite. She had been making it for 9 years. He came home at 6:30. She heard the garage door, heard his car, heard his footsteps crossing the kitchen. "Hey," she said, "dinner's almost ready." He said nothing. She turned. He was standing at the island, arms crossed, eyes cold. At the expression of a man who has arrived at a conversation he has been preparing for longer than she knew. "We need to talk," he said. "Okay. I'm sleeping with Nadine." The room did not tilt. The floor did not drop. She simply stood there, with the serving spoon in her hand, and understood, in the specific way that women understand things they have half known for months, that the sentence she had just heard was not a beginning. It was a conclusion. "Nadine," she said, her best friend, her maid of honor, the woman who had held her hand in the hospital when her mother had surgery 2 years ago, the woman who called her every Sunday morning without fail, the woman who had been in her home last weekend, eating dinner at this table, laughing at something on television, hugging her goodbye at the door. 6 months, he said. He said it the way you say a number in a report. Factual, efficient, without visible discomfort. And then, the part she would always remember, he crossed his arms tighter and said, "If you can't handle it, you can leave. Not, I'm sorry, not, I don't know what happened to us. Not even the decency of visible guilt. If you can't handle it, you can leave." She looked at him. At this man she had loved for 11 years, married for 9, supported through his mother's illness, through his career restructuring, through every hard season they had faced together. She looked at him and said one word: "Fine." He smirked. He thought he had won. He had not won anything. He had just made the most expensive miscalculation of his life. What happened in the next 6 months would be told in legal offices and newsrooms, and eventually in a keynote address to 500 healthcare professionals. Not as a cautionary tale, as proof that the most dangerous response to betrayal is not rage. It is composure. Absolute, surgical, unwavering composure, and a woman who knows exactly who she is. This is the story of Adaeze Was, of what was said in that kitchen, and of everything that followed. Stay until the very end. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Before the kitchen, and before the 6 months she did not know about, and before the word "fine" that would become the most consequential word she ever said, Adaeze was the kind of woman who built things, not as a figure of speech, as a fact. She had built the Adaeze Wellness Institute from a single rented room in a medical office park in Houston, Texas, into a 3-location integrated health practice with 16 employees and a patient waiting list that stretched 4 months. She specialized in integrative medicine, the combination of conventional treatment with nutritional therapy, mental wellness, and the specific attention to the whole person that mainstream medicine often did not have time for. She was 38 years old. She had grown up in Houston, the second of 4 daughters born to Nigerian immigrants who had built their American lives with the specific intention of people who understand that nothing is given and everything must be earned with both hands. Her father had been a civil engineer. Her mother had been a secondary school biology teacher for 26 years, the kind of teacher who remembered every student's name and stayed after school for the ones who were struggling, and who had once stayed on the phone with Adaeze for 4 hours, talking her through a crisis in her 2nd year of medical school. Adaeze had not forgotten that call. It was part of why she had built a clinic that treated the whole person, because someone had once treated her that way, and it had made all the difference. She had met Marcus at a fundraiser in her 3rd year of residency, and he was 32. Financial consultant. The kind of handsome that photographs well, and the kind of charming that works better in person than in photographs. He had pursued her with the specific focused energy of a man who had identified what he wanted. She had been cautious. Her best friend Nadine had been less cautious. "He's wonderful," Nadine had said. "He's attentive. He's successful. He's clearly obsessed with you. What's the hesitation?" Adaeze had hesitated because she was building something. Because she understood even then that the people you choose become part of the structure of your life. And she had not been entirely sure that Marcus was load-bearing. She had married him anyway. Because love is not always rational. Because 9 years ago she had believed that what they had was enough. Because Nadine had been so enthusiastic. The 9 years had been good. Or they had appeared good. The exterior of a marriage is not always the same as the interior. The exterior had been a beautiful home, 2 professional incomes, social events, mutual friends, a life that looked from the outside like exactly what it was supposed to look like. The interior had been something else. Subtle at first. Marcus's discomfort with her success. Not expressed directly. Never directly. But present in the way he spoke about her clinic at social events. "She's always at work," he would say, laughing, but not entirely laughing. "She cares more about her patients than she cares about me," he would say, joking, but not entirely joking. She had registered these comments. She had responded to them, with reassurance, with extra effort, and with the specific accommodation of a woman who has been told in indirect ways that her ambition is an inconvenience. She had accommodated, and he had accepted the accommodation and asked for more. By year 7, she had begun to feel, in the way you feel a slow shift in pressure without being able to name it, that she was working harder to maintain the marriage than Marcus was. By year 8, she had been thinking about a direct conversation. By year 9, he had come home and told her he was sleeping with her best friend, and told her to handle it. She had said one word. "Fine." He had smirked. He had picked up his keys. He had left. Adaeze stood in the kitchen, alone, with the herb-roasted chicken cooling in the oven, with the serving spoon still in her hand, that with 9 years of marriage rearranging themselves in her mind into a sequence she had not previously been able to see clearly. Every comment about her work. Every evening he had come home late without explanation. Every Sunday brunch with Nadine, where Nadine had been a little too eager to hear about Marcus's week. Every time Marcus had mentioned Nadine specifically, with just a little too much familiarity. She had not seen it, or she had seen it, and had chosen not to look directly at it, because looking directly at it would have required her to act, and she had not been ready to act. She was ready now. She set down the serving spoon. She went to her home office. She sat down. She opened her laptop, and she began searching for the financial documents she had never fully examined, not because Marcus had hidden them, but because he had managed them. There was a difference. Managing the finances had been his idea. "It makes sense," he had said 3 months after the wedding. "I work in finance. I know how to optimize for tax efficiency, for investment returns. Let me handle it. You focus on the clinic." She had let him. She had trusted him. She had been building the clinic. She had not questioned the arrangement. For 9 years, she was questioning it now. She went through what she could access. Joint accounts, credit card statements, the investment portfolio. What she found, even in this initial, incomplete review, stopped her cold. Transfers she did not recognize, to accounts she did not know existed. Amounts that were not large enough to be immediately alarming, but that, spread across months, across years, added up to something she could not explain. And she wrote down every number, every date, every transfer she could not account for. When she had covered every document she could access, she looked at the list. Then she picked up her phone. She had the number in her contacts from a speaking engagement 3 years ago. Victoria Osei, attorney, family law and financial litigation, the best in Houston. She pressed call. It rang 4 times. You've reached Victoria Osei. Leave a message. Victoria, this is Adaeze Was. We met at the Women in Medicine Conference in 2021. I need to speak with you. Tomorrow, if possible. It's urgent. She set down the phone. She went back to the kitchen. She looked at the dinner she had made. She thought about the 9 years of dinners, the 9 years of accommodations, the 9 years of making herself smaller in the ways he needed her to be smaller. She covered the chicken, put it in the refrigerator, poured herself 1 glass of wine, sat in the living room, and allowed herself for exactly 1 evening to feel all of it. The grief, the anger, the specific devastating humiliation of betrayal by 2 people simultaneously. She felt it completely. She did not suppress it. She did not perform strength she was not yet feeling. She sat with all of it. And then she went to bed and slept, because tomorrow she had 12 patients to see, and a lawyer to call, and work to do. Victoria Osei's office was on the 21st floor of a building in downtown Houston that communicated, without trying to, that the people who worked here were serious. She was 44 years old. She had the specific quality of someone who had heard every version of every story and had long since stopped being surprised and had channeled that unsurprised quality into a forensic attention to detail that her opponents consistently underestimated. She rose when Adaeze entered. Dr. Cole, thank you for coming in. Thank you for seeing me on short notice. Your message sounded urgent. Sit down. Tell me everything. So Adaeze told her, precisely, without dramatizing, without minimizing, the confession, the dismissal, the 6 months. Nadine. Victoria listened without interrupting. When Adaeze finished, Victoria set down her pen. First, she said, I want you to understand that what your husband did is not just a personal betrayal. Based on what you've described, him managing all finances, your limited direct access, the transfers you found, this may also be a financial betrayal. Those 2 things need to be addressed simultaneously. That's what I assumed. You were right to assume it. Victoria leaned forward. I need everything. Bank statements, tax returns, investment account records, credit card history, everything for the past 5 years. Can you get me all of it? Some of it. Marcus manages most of our accounts. I have access in theory, but not habit. I haven't reviewed everything regularly. Victoria's expression did not change, but something in it sharpened. The fact that he insisted on managing the finances and you were not in the habit of reviewing them is itself significant. It creates a pattern. She made a note. I'm going to bring in a forensic accountant, someone I work with regularly. She's going to go through everything. Oh, what are you expecting to find? I don't know yet. But when a man who works in finance insists on controlling all marital finances and his wife has limited visibility, I want to understand why. A pause. I've seen this before. Usually what I find is either incompetence or intention. Neither is acceptable, but one of them has legal consequences. There's something else, Adaeze said. Tell me. My clinic. I built it before we married. I've kept the business accounts separate. But over the years, Marcus has occasionally asked me to move personal funds into the joint accounts. I did it because he said it was for tax optimization. Victoria set down her pen completely. How often? Maybe 10, 12 times over 9 years? How much total? I'm not certain. Somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000. Victoria was very still. Dr. Cole, she said, I need you to understand something. If those funds were moved into joint accounts and then transferred out to accounts you didn't know about, that is not a tax strategy. That is theft. The word landed in the room with the weight of something irrevocable. Adaeze had not let herself use that word until now, but hearing it from Victoria made it real, made it named, made it something she was allowed to respond to. "How fast can we move?" Adaeze asked. "I file today. I request emergency asset preservation to freeze all joint accounts before he can move anything else. The forensic accountant starts this week." Victoria looked at her directly. "Dr. Cole, I need you to go home and act normally. Don't tell him you've been here. Don't confront him about the money. Don't change anything about your behavior." "Can you do that?" "Yes. Are you sure?" "I spent 9 years not confronting things I should have confronted," Adaeze said. "I can manage a few more weeks." Victoria studied her. "Most clients can't do this," she said. "The ones who can are the ones who win." "Then I'll win." Victoria allowed herself a small smile. "I believe you," she said. The forensic accountant's name was Dr. Priya Mehta. She was small and methodical and spoke about financial documents the way a doctor speaks about diagnostic imaging, with the specific, calm authority of someone who has learned to read things that other people cannot see. She called Adaeze on a Tuesday afternoon, 10 days after Victoria had retained her. "Dr. Cole, I have preliminary findings. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" "Of course. How bad is it?" A pause. "I'll walk you through everything in person." The pause was its own answer. The findings were laid out across a conference table, organized, color-coded, documented with the meticulous care of someone who understood that every number needed to be defensible in court. Adaeze sat across from Priya and Victoria and looked at what 9 years had actually looked like. From the outside, a financially stable marriage, 2 professional incomes, a beautiful home, a growing investment portfolio. From the inside, as Priya's documents showed, a systematic, patient transfer of funds. It had started in year 3 of the marriage, small amounts initially. 5,000 here, 8,000 there. Moved from the joint accounts into a business entity Marcus had established, a consulting LLC registered in Delaware that Adaeze had not known existed. Over 9 years, the transfers had totaled $412,000. Of that amount, Priya's analysis showed that approximately 68% had originated from deposits made by Adaeze, from her clinic income, from the career Marcus had claimed competed with their marriage. He had been taking money from the thing he complained about. "There's more," Priya said. She turned to another section. "The LLC has a secondary account. Funds moved from the first LLC into a second entity registered in Nevada. From there, transfers to a personal account in the Cayman Islands. How much total?" In the Cayman account, at last statement, approximately $180,000. Where did the rest go? Priya placed down a series of receipts. A hotel in Miami, a resort in the Maldives, a jewelry purchase from a boutique on the Galleria, dinner reservations at restaurants Adaeze had never been to, a weekend rental in Sedona, all dated, all in the period of the affair, all charged to accounts Adaeze had not known existed. "He funded his relationship with Nadine using money that came primarily from my income," Adaeze said. Not a question, a statement. "Yes," Priya confirmed. Adaeze looked at the documents, at the numbers, at the receipts, at the Maldives trip taken while she had been working a 12-hour day at her clinic on a Wednesday in February. She felt something. Not the grief from the first night. Something colder, sharper. The specific anger of someone who has been stolen from. Not just emotionally, financially, deliberately, across 9 years. "Victoria," she said. "Yes, I want everything. I know. I want this documented completely. I want the full picture presented to a judge, and I want him to understand, specifically and precisely, what he chose to destroy." Victoria looked at her client. "Then that is what we're going to give him," she said. She came on a Thursday afternoon. Adaeze's assistant, a young woman named Sola, knocked on the office door with the expression of someone delivering information she had not asked to be responsible for. "Dr. Cole, there's a woman here. She says her name is Nadine Okafor. She says she's a friend." Adaeze set down the file she was reviewing, looked at Sola. "Tell her I'll be with her in 5 minutes." She needed the 5 minutes, not to compose herself. She was already composed. She needed the 5 minutes to decide what she was going to do with this conversation. By the time she walked into the waiting room, she had decided. Nadine was sitting in the chair nearest the door. Designer bag, careful makeup, the specific appearance of someone who had thought about what they were going to look like for this conversation. She stood when Adaeze entered. Adaeze. "Thank you for seeing me. Come to my office." She led Nadine down the hallway, into the office with its diplomas and its bookshelves and its photographs of Adaeze at conferences and medical events. She sat behind her desk. She did not offer Nadine a seat. Nadine sat anyway. "You know why I'm here," Nadine said. "You're going to explain yourself. I'm here to apologize." Adaeze waited. "What Marcus and I did was wrong. I know that. I've always known that. But Adaeze, you were never really there. You were always at the clinic, always building, always focused on your patients. He was lonely." "Stop," Adaeze said. Her voice was not loud. It did not need to be. "Don't tell me about his loneliness. I sat with your mother when she was in the hospital. I was there for your father's funeral. I took your calls at midnight when your relationship with Derek ended. I showed up for you. For 11 years, I showed up for you." A pause. "And you were in my home last weekend, eating dinner at my table, hugging me goodbye." Nadine's eyes filled. "I know." "You don't know," Adaeze said quietly. "Because if you knew, if you understood what you did, you wouldn't have come here to explain his loneliness to me. I came to say I'm sorry." "Are you?" "Yes." "Then hear this." Adaeze leaned forward slightly. "The sorry you're offering me doesn't change anything. It doesn't give me back 11 years of friendship. It doesn't erase what was done in my home. It doesn't return what Marcus stole." Nadine's expression shifted. "Stole?" "That's a conversation for the courts," Adaeze said. "Not for you." "What do you mean, courts?" "I mean exactly what I said." Adaeze stood. "I have patients waiting. You need to leave." "And Nadine," the woman looked up. "Don't come back here." Nadine stood. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at the diplomas on the wall, at the photographs, at the evidence of everything Adaeze had built. Something crossed her expression. Not guilt. Not exactly. The specific and dawning recognition of someone who has just understood that the woman she thought she knew is something she had not fully accounted for. She left without saying anything else. Sola appeared in the doorway 2 minutes later. "Dr. Cole, Mr. Patterson is in room 3. "Thank you," Adaeze said. "I'll be right there." She straightened her white coat, picked up her files, and walked down the hallway. Marcus was served at his office, 2 weeks after the clinic visit from Nadine, 3 weeks after Adaeze had walked into Victoria's office. A process server appeared at the front desk of his financial consultancy, asked for Marcus Cole by name, handed him an envelope in front of his assistant and 2 junior colleagues. Inside, divorce papers, a petition citing adultery, a notice of emergency asset preservation freezing all joint accounts and all accounts in Marcus's name pending the forensic audit, a notice of civil suit for fraud, embezzlement, and theft. The amount, $412,000, plus interest, plus legal fees, plus punitive damages for 9 years of systematic financial deception within a marriage. Marcus called Adaeze 11 times in the 40 minutes after he was served. She did not answer. He texted, "What have you done? Call me." Adaeze, I need to talk to you. This is insane. You're making a huge mistake. I know you're angry, but this is not the way to handle this. She read each message once, responded to none. On the 12th call, she answered. What? Adaeze? His voice was tight, barely controlled. My accounts are frozen. My business account is frozen. I can't access anything. I know. You can't do this. The judge signed the order this morning, she said. I can. And I have. There are going to be criminal charges against me if this goes forward. Do you understand what you're doing? I understand exactly what I'm doing, she said. I'm responding to being stolen from. I didn't steal. $412,000, Marcus. Your forensic accountant can verify the number if you'd like. Mine already has. Silence. How did you find it? I hired someone who knows how to find things. A pause. You should have remembered that before you moved money into a Delaware LLC. More silence. Then, his voice dropping, something like panic entering it. Adaeze, please, this doesn't have to go this far. You told me, she said, that if I couldn't handle it, I should leave. I know what I said, so I'm leaving, and I'm taking everything I'm entitled to with me. She paused. Your attorney will receive our terms by end of day. I suggest you review them carefully. She ended the call, blocked his number, picked up her coffee, went back to work. The settlement meeting was 3 weeks later. A conference room on the 32nd floor of downtown Houston. Marcus arrived with his attorney, a man named Gerald Fitch, who had a reputation for aggressive representation and who looked, when he saw Victoria's stack of forensic documentation, like someone reassessing a situation he had thought he understood. Nadine was not present. Victoria had made clear that her presence would result in Adaeze's legal team exploring every available avenue for naming her as a co-respondent. Nadine had stayed home. Adaeze sat across the table from Marcus. She looked at him. He looked older than he had 2 months ago. The confidence was gone. In its place was the specific, a diminished quality of a man who has discovered that the structures he built to protect himself were less solid than he believed. Victoria presented the terms. The house to Adaeze outright. The investment portfolio, 70% to Adaeze, reflecting documented financial contributions. The $412,000 returned in full within 60 days. Spousal support. None. Paid in either direction. The Delaware LLC and its assets turned over to Adaeze pending the resolution of the civil suit. The Cayman account, subject to a separate legal process. Gerald conferred with Marcus. The conference was brief. He had nothing to work with. The documentation was too complete. The forensic trail too clear. The judge who had signed the asset preservation order had already seen enough to be, in Victoria's word, unimpressed with Marcus's financial conduct. We'll need a week, Gerald said. You have 3 days, Victoria replied. That's not enough time to... It's enough time, Victoria said. Your client knows what he did. The documentation exists. The only question is whether this resolves in this room or in front of a judge where it becomes public record. Every detail, every transfer, every receipt. She looked at Gerald. I imagine your client would prefer this room. Gerald looked at Marcus. Marcus was looking at the table. 3 days, Gerald said. Thank you. Adaeze stood. She had not said a single word in the entire meeting. She had not needed to. Marcus looked up as she moved toward the door. Adaeze. She turned. I'm sorry, he said. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then she turned back toward the door. Your attorney knows where to reach mine, she said. And she walked out. Margaret Cole appeared at the clinic on a Wednesday afternoon. She was 63 years old. She had raised Marcus and his brother on her own after their father died. She was proud. She was fierce. She had always been kind to Adaeze, in the way that certain mothers-in-law are kind. Not effusively, not without reservation, but genuinely. the specific kindness of a woman who recognized quality and was willing to acknowledge it. She came to the waiting room without an appointment. Sola showed her in. Adaeze looked at her across the desk and felt something she had not expected. Not anger, sadness, for both of them, for what had been done to the family that this woman had built. "Margaret," she said, "sit down." "I won't take much of your time," Margaret said. "I know you're busy." She sat. She placed her hands on her knees. She looked at Adaeze with the direct, slightly exhausted gaze of a woman who has had a very difficult few weeks. "I'm not here to defend him," she said. Adaeze waited. "I'm here because I needed you to hear from me directly that what he did was wrong." Margaret's voice was steady, but the steadiness cost her something. "I raised him better than that. Or I thought I did. And discovering that I was wrong about what he became, that is something I'm going to carry for a long time. Margaret, let me finish." She took a breath. "You were a good wife to my son. You were a good daughter-in-law to me. When I was sick, you were there in ways that mattered, that most people wouldn't have bothered with." She pressed her lips together, and he chose to throw that away for something that will not last. "I meant to steal from you while doing it." Her voice broke on the last sentence. "Just slightly. I have no words for that, no justification. I just needed you to know that I see it, that I'm ashamed of it." Adaeze felt tears threaten. She did not cry, but she felt them. "Thank you," she said. "That means more than you know. Are you going to be all right?" "Yes," Adaeze said. "I will." "I know you will," Margaret said quietly. "You've always been stronger than he understood." She stood, straightening her jacket. "I'm sorry, Adaeze, for all of it." She left before Adaeze could respond. Adaeze sat in her office for a long time after the door closed, thinking about the specific grief of watching a family break apart, thinking about the specific grace of a woman who had come to say what she did not have to say, and thinking about what it meant to be seen clearly by someone, even at the end of something, especially at the end of something. Marcus signed 2 days after the meeting, every term, without modification. His attorney filed the paperwork. Victoria called Adaeze at 6:30 in the evening. "It's done." Adaeze was at the clinic finishing her last patient note of the day. She set down her pen. "All of it? Everything. House, investment split, return of funds, the LLC assets, all of it. And the civil suit? We have a settlement there too. He's agreed to a structured repayment of the full amount plus interest over 36 months. Criminal charges are off the table as part of the civil settlement, but the financial judgment is on public record." "Good. Adaeze." "Yes. You handled this with more composure than anyone I've ever represented. I want you to know that. Thank you, Victoria. Get some rest." She ended the call. She sat in her office, in the clinic she had built, surrounded by 8 years of accumulated work, diplomas, awards, photographs of patients she had helped, staff members who had grown with her, evidence on every wall of what she had built, what he had tried to use against her, what had, in the end, saved her. She turned off her desk lamp. She walked through the clinic, turned off the lights in each room, said goodnight to Sola, who was the last to leave, walked to her car in the parking lot, drove home, to the house that was now hers, completely, legally, on every document, hers. She made tea. She sat at the kitchen table, the same table where he had stood and told her about Nadine, and the same table where she had said fine. She sipped her tea and thought about the word, fine. 1 syllable, 4 letters, the word he had taken as surrender, the word that had been, all along, the beginning. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Nadine called. Adaeze answered. "He left me," Nadine said. "Marcus left me 2 months after your divorce. He met someone else, I know." "You knew?" "I suspected," Adaeze said. "Men who leave their marriages for someone else are not men who have found the right person. They are men who cannot be alone." A long silence. "I'm sorry," Nadine said, "for everything. I'm so—" "I know," Adaeze said, "and I've forgiven you." "You have?" "Not for you," Adaeze said. "For me. Carrying that anger was too expensive. I had other places to put my energy." A pause. "But we are not friends anymore, Nadine. That part is done." I understand. I hope you find what you're looking for," Adaeze said. "I genuinely hope that." She ended the call. She put down the phone. She opened her laptop. She had a presentation to finalize. The National Conference on Integrative Medicine, keynote address, next Thursday. She had 200 slides to review and a speech to tighten. She got to work. She stood at the podium in front of 500 healthcare professionals. The auditorium was at capacity. The screen behind her showed her photograph and her title. Dr. Adaeze Was, founder, Adaeze Wellness Institute. Keynote, The Future of Integrative Medicine. She was not nervous. She had been preparing for this her entire career. She looked out at the audience, at the faces of people who had come to hear what she had built, what she had learned, what she knew. She found, in the front row, two people she had not expected. Her mother, who had driven 4 hours from San Antonio without telling her, who was sitting with her hands clasped in her lap and her chin slightly elevated in the specific posture of a woman watching her daughter and feeling something too large for a specific expression, and beside her, Margaret Cole, Marcus's mother, who had come, who had found out about the conference, who had driven herself, and who was sitting in the front row with the same quiet, slightly overwhelmed attention. Their eyes met. Margaret nodded. Once. Adaeze nodded back. Then she turned to her notes. Then she set them aside, because she had decided, standing there, that she did not need them. She knew what she wanted to say. "Good morning," she began. I want to start with something that isn't in my prepared remarks." The room settled. 500 people leaning slightly forward. "I built my clinic 8 years ago in a room that was barely large enough for a desk. I didn't have investors. I didn't have a mentor in this specific field. I had training, I had conviction, and I had the specific stubbornness of someone who believes in what they're building even before anyone else does." She paused. "In the past year, I went through something that tried to make me believe that what I had built was smaller than it was, that my work was a distraction from the things that were supposed to matter. I want to tell you, particularly to the women in this room who have heard similar things, that is a lie. Your work is not a distraction. Your work is the point. What you are building matters. And not instead of your relationships, not at the expense of your life, but as part of it, as the fullest expression of who you are." The applause started before she had finished the sentence. She waited for it to settle. Then she talked for 45 minutes about integrative medicine, about the patients she had helped, about the future of treating the whole person, about what she had learned, about what she was still learning. It was the best talk she had ever given, not because it was the most polished, because it was the most honest. Afterward, in the receiving line of colleagues wanting to connect, she found herself face to face with Margaret. The older woman held her hands. "Your mother is very proud," Margaret said. "She didn't tell me she was coming." "I asked her not to," Margaret said. "I wanted it to be a surprise. I hope that's all right." "It's more than all right." Margaret's eyes glistened. He saw it too, you know. The speech was streamed online. He watched it. Adaeze looked at her. "Did he?" "He sent me a text afterward. Said he'd never understood what he had." She was quiet for a moment. "That's a very expensive lesson," she said. "Yes," Margaret agreed. "It is." They held each other's hands for a moment longer. Then the next person in the line stepped forward, and Adaeze turned to face them, with the specific composed warmth of a woman who is exactly where she is supposed to be. Marcus Cole stood in that kitchen and told his wife he was sleeping with her best friend. and told her that if she could not handle it, she should leave. He expected tears. He expected negotiation. He expected the specific and exhausting drama of a woman who has been devastated and is reacting from that devastation. He got one word: fine. And then he got something he had not anticipated: a woman who went quietly home, opened a laptop, made phone calls, hired the right people, documented 9 years of what had actually happened, and dismantled everything he thought he had protected, not in anger, in the cold, surgical composure of someone who understood that the most powerful response to betrayal is not noise. It is preparation. Adaeze Was did not build a keynote-worthy career in spite of the people who tried to tell her it was a problem. She built it because of who she was. The betrayal did not create her strength. It revealed it. Because she had always been this. He just never looked carefully enough to see it. Oh, if this story moved you, hit the like button. Leave a comment telling me where you are watching from and what you thought when she said the word fine. Tell me if you have ever responded to betrayal with composure instead of chaos. Tell me if you have ever had to choose yourself when choosing was the hardest thing available. I want to hear from you. Share this with someone who needs to hear that the most powerful thing you can say to someone who has underestimated you is not an argument. It is a result. Subscribe with notifications on, because every week I bring you stories of women who were told they were not enough and proved that they were always too much. I will see you in the next one.